and then a year into the relationship, it gets really, really abusive.
From who?
Would you? From both.
This is so rare.
Anyone
so
really.
Rare.
It happens.
Go on.
My point is, I'm just, even though it might be rare from what you guys think,
it is.
If it would happen, what would you recommend for those people to do? Would they divorce, or do you want them to keep going in the relationship?
Keep going.
You can't divorce. I mean, that's not a real thing. You can like separate. See, his Catholic background shines through. He knows. You can't divorce. You can separate, but you can't actually divorce. That's not a real thing.
Even though it might be like physically abusive.
You got to endure. People are too.
You want to stick into the relationship.
People are just.
I mean, look,
people
nowadays
are just pussies. Everybody fucking quit.
No, but I'm asking
situation.
for anyone that might be in that situation, what would you recommend?
Okay,
endure.
I'll tell
would
you
they
what.
give up
I'll tell you what.
Endure.
I wouldn't want my daughter in that situation, quite frankly. And I understand the argument to endure because I have people close to me who grew up in abusive households, and it lasted for periods of time, and it was a phase, and they endured through it, and they ended up raising healthy, successful.
We'll get married, have a kid, and then the wife starts cheating. Do you think they should divorce?
Absolutely.
They should divorce then?
Jesus himself.
They should divorce then?
Jesus himself said.
But it wasn't
hold on. Jesus
and you
himself
could like
said.
work things through, right?
Jesus himself.
Interesting. Like, you saw everyone's body language change with that one. They're like John's over here, like everyone's like, like ready to explode. Like, the woman cheated. Where was that with the abuse? It's not the same energy, but yeah, you can die from one. You can die from somebody abusing you. Like, okay, so that's kind of the difference. It's like the empathy, right? There's no empathy when it came to the abuse, because they're probably imagining in their minds like, oh, like a woman probably wouldn't abuse me. I would probably be the one doing it. That's probably what they're imagining, and that's probably why they're not so quick to empathize. Like, oh my God, I would never tell someone to stay in that. With abuse, but with cheating, instantly, they suddenly understood the concept of empathy in 0.1 second when it came to themselves, and they're like, me getting cheated on? You know? Chimp out imminent.
Yeah, this is something that I want to talk about as well, because this is something that I've been thinking about. Is the way that, like, when it comes to women, like, any bad stuff, like, happening to women, like, red pillars are, like, so dismissive about it. Like, when, you know, they all blame women for, like, the sort of, like, breaking down of morals in our society, for, like, hookup culture, single motherhood, and for divorce, that they all, like, sort of put the blame all onto women. But then as soon as anybody, like, brings up anything like abuse, like, happening to women, they straight away just, like, sweep it under the carpet, like to pretend like it doesn't happen. And abuse can happen to both men and women, but I'm just mentioning women at the minute because the red pill community and manosphere and the Christians, conservatives, and all of those kind of people, they just are so dismissive about it. Not all of them, but it seems like most of them, okay, in these communities are just so dismissive about it. And well, like Brittany said, like, they don't empathise with women, they only empathise with themselves. Like, they're always like, we shouldn't have to put up with controlling women, we shouldn't have to put up with women that emasculate us. Men don't want to put up with nagging women, men don't want to put up with manipulative women, men don't want to put up with women that use sex as a weapon. Men don't want to put up with women that deny them sex. Men don't want to put up with women that cheat, that are disloyal, you know. Men don't want to be treated badly by women, understandably, but as soon as it's turned round the other way, it's kind of like, oh, you should just put up with it, you know. If a man cheats, it's probably your fault, you're probably horrible to him.
You know, maybe you made his life such a living hell at home. Like, you know, if you're going home and there's all these hot women trying to sleep with you, and she's making your life a living hell at home, it's like you might be more likely to do it. Like, we take no accountability for that position.
Or you should forgive him, or it's just a handshake when it's a man. And then, even more disgustingly, the idea of abuse is just, like, swept under the carpet. Now, and I can remember, and it's almost like, it's almost like their attitude is like, oh, but women are silly. Women are silly, illogical things, you know. If a woman says she's being abused, she's probably making too much of a big thing about nothing, you know. But years ago, it used to be a thing where, you know, women would stick by their husbands through all the tough times, and they'd be supportive of their husbands when they were going through difficult times and all that. And, you know, it's like they try to turn it round to make it sound like as if they're just talking about something trivial, you know, like these guys, they go on to say that, like, oh, people give up on marriage too easy nowadays. And it's like, yeah, okay, that's a fair point. A lot of people probably do give up too easy nowadays. But these women specifically said abuse, okay? They're not talking about, they're not talking about a married couple just going through a bad patch, you know, like, oh, the guy's really stressed at work and he's been in a bit of a bad mood and taking it out on his wife, or something like that. We're not talking about the guy, you know, the people in the marriage just going through a bit of a bad patch where they're having angry arguments and saying things that are hurtful to each other. It's like, no, they specifically said abuse, okay? And it annoys me a little bit to, like, just sweep that under the carpet because, like, how many women is it that actually, like, die every day, you know, as a result of, abusive partners? Because, it's quite a high percentage. And again, like, you know, women can be dangerous to men as well. There are men who've been killed and been hurt by crazy women. So I would say to anybody, don't stay with somebody who is abusing you. But just saying is that they sweep it under the carpet when it's women, and they make out like it's nothing, when actually a lot of women die at the hands of abusive partners. Okay, but also I've heard people say before, like, again in the red pill community, that they only count it as abuse as if, like, the guy's being really physically violent and, like, knocking her out and stuff like that, when, like, I mean, abuse can be mental as well. And I've heard guys in the red pill community go on about how, oh, they don't count verbal abuse, you know, that's just being silly and all that. But it's like, it's sort of ignoring, like, mental abuse, that people, you know, can be mentally abused. And it's like, you know, I tend to think, like, if you were, like, working with somebody who is a bit of a bully, that can be, like, a pain enough, okay? So, like, for people to just, like, advocate that, like, you stay in, like, a marriage with, like, somebody that's treating you like that, it's kind of, like, disgusting, okay? It's like, you know, I understand people being, you know, against divorce for their religious beliefs, or, you know, people having the opinion that you should work at a marriage, yeah, but there's a line to be drawn about what people should put up with. And considering, like, you know, these guys, oh, you won't put up with a woman who cheats on you, so then don't sit there and say that a woman should be putting up with a husband who's, like, putting her through hell every day, and that she should just, like, stay forever in a marriage like that. It's like, it's disgusting. It's like Brittany says, there's no empathy for women, you know. Like, these guys are all, it's all like, all about, like, just controlling the woman, and the woman should be doing what they're told, and, like, women are children, and men are always the sensible and good ones, and it's just swept under the carpet, the idea that, like, oh, you know, some women could be, like, in an abusive relation. In fact, these guys, like, laughed when she mentioned it, as if to say, like, oh, God, how ridiculous. Look at this silly women claiming that men can be abusive. It's like, well, yeah, some can, dear, okay? Do you want to go and explain to the women that have been killed by violent partners? Do you want to go and explain to them about how, oh, this is all in their head, about how they were imagining it, or how, you know, like, if you could go back in time before they were killed, would you have been telling them then that they should still stay in the relationship, knowing that they were going to get killed, or would you be advising them to get out if you knew what was going to happen? Okay, and I can remember this guy that used to be on YouTube. He calls himself Yogi Obes, and his channel's not on YouTube anymore. But I remember when he was talking about marital rape, and like he doesn't agree that marital rape is a thing. Like a few of them think that in a marriage, like because sex is expected, that it's not actually rape if a husband forces the woman. Okay, and he said, well, I think when like some woman had claimed that her husband had raped her, he said, well, I think the real question we should be asking here is why was she denying him sex in the first place? And I kind of think, like, really? That's where your mind goes, is it? Like, if a woman claims that she's been raped by her husband, that's where your mind goes, is to wonder why she was denying him sex in the first place. Like, if a guy is revolting and disgusting enough and abuse and degrade her in the most revolting way possible, your first thought is like, well, why did she deny him sex in the first place? Like, you know, that'd be the way to end rape, would it? It's like if women just like never said no in the first place, then there'd be no such thing as rape, would there? So, you know, why didn't the feminists think of that? You know, obviously it's women's fault. You know, why don't you just always say yes, women, then there'd be no such thing as rapists? It's like, for goodness sake, it's like wanting to pretend it doesn't happen. Just close your eyes to it and be like, no. There's no such thing as a man that abuses his wife. Let's just close our eyes to that. We'll just pretend it doesn't happen. It's disgusting. Okay. It's revolting. Alright. And it's like interesting how, like, in like these kind of communities, though, how they can, like, some of them, they can recognise, like, when they think that a man is, like, not being treated right by a woman, they can spot that and then be quick to say, like, oh, you know, I don't think this is right, I think he should get out of the relationship. But then, if it's a woman who's being mistreated, again, it's like, oh, it must be her fault, or, people are just blaming the man because because people are misandric, and
is definitely in the presumption that Stephen Crowder is the aggressor in this. We don't know what led up to this. Guys who have been in this position right here, where they're at their wits fucking end, they know it just doesn't happen like that. It is a process where it's like it's building over, and she's nagging. It's passive aggressive behavior, and it's like a sexless marriage and everything else. It's like excuse after excuse, or it's complaint after complaint after complaint. There's zero appreciation, and
it's the outright dismissal of that anybody could be treating a woman badly. I also think that the reason why some of these guys are quick to dismiss abuse against women is because they themselves are very controlling and, like, well, have no empathy for women and are very dismissive of women as individual people themselves, and kind of think that the woman's just there to serve them and to just do what they want, and they don't, like, think of her feelings at all. And so, like, have no problem, like, sitting there sort of, like, talking about ways to sort of, like, manipulate your wife or girlfriend.
Do you know what girls are more scared of than losing a man they like? They're more scared of having the man they like, but he doesn't like her anymore. So what will happen if I put a girl in those kind of scenarios and she doesn't act right or doesn't make the right choice? What I will do, instead of actually getting rid of her, I'll keep fucking her, but I'll fuck her different. So instead of, there's no kissing anymore. You understand? You understand?
He's not doing that thing anymore.
She's gonna feel it different. Yeah. And afterwards, she's gonna be like, "You don't love me anymore, do you?"
Where's this going?
You've threatened intimacy.
Yeah.
You've threatened intimacy.
And she's gonna get. It's no longer intimate on any level. She got fucked, and then afterwards, she'll be like trying to give me a hug. I'll be like, "Oh wait, I gotta go out." And I'm going to change on such a small level that will hurt her more than even losing you. The reason guys can't do that is because if they fuck a bitch again, they fall back in love like a pussy. I won't do that. Sex as a man is a weapon you need to use. You have to deny it. You have to give it. You got to give it good.
Yep.
You got to give it bad. You got to use it right. And when I say there's been scenarios where a girl hasn't acted quite right over something small, not a big transgression like cheating, then I continue to see her, but my demeanor towards her changed. And my demeanor towards her didn't change much in day-to-day life, right? But it changed when we had sex, and she smelt it and she could feel it, and it hurt her bad. And she got her ass in line fast. He used to kiss me. He used to hug me afterwards. These small things. You go from all that nice shit to just fucking her like she's, but not in a good way like she's nothing. In a bad way like she's nothing. The real G's know what I'm saying here. There's a difference.
Yeah,
there's a difference.
And you'll speak to this about it's because in that moment you have her in her most vulnerable place.
That's right. That's right.
That's
women are most programmable. Because all women are programmed, and I want to say this, maybe I'll be a misogynist now, man. That's basically where the programming comes from as a whole. So all women are programmed on some level. And I think with especially during sex, that's when women are most programmable because they're most vulnerable. Like if you get a bitch and she's just about to come and you start saying in her face, I'm going to cheat on you fucking slut. And she comes while you say you're going to cheat. She's going to end up getting horny next time you cheat. I know it sounds crazy. There's ways you can fuck her like she doesn't mean anything in a way that she enjoys, and ways you can fuck her like she doesn't mean anything in a way she doesn't enjoy. The G's of the game know exactly what I'm talking about.
Dick, bro.
And you can do that gradually over time. If she ain't acting right, you can change the way you fuck a bitch to make her start to get insecure about he doesn't actually care, he doesn't actually like me. And that will shock them. You have moves you can make, but you gotta be perspicacious.
Okay, I kind of find it ironic that like these guys they always go on about how men are so logical and women are illogical when they're in their feelings. Well, men are the logical, sensible ones, and women are children. Well, men are just so much more logical and sensible. Yet here they are, like, when they're talking about conflict in a relationship, instead of, like, sitting your partner down and having an adult conversation and sorting things out in a mature and sensible way, these guys like act like a bunch of children and sort of come out with all these like plans of like, well, how can we manipulate her? How can we get her under control? How can we, well, basically hurt her so that she'll like end up doing everything we want? And this, again, this is just like really sick and disgusting. It's like, who sits there coming out with stuff like, oh, well, when she's naked, she's at her most vulnerable, so if you treat her badly, then that's going to really hurt her. It's like, what kind of sick person would want to really hurt somebody that they're supposed to love, that they're supposed to be in a caring relationship with? Like, you go on about, like, women are supposed to, like, be loving and supporting to their husbands, but these guys are completely incapable of loving or empathizing or giving a shit about their wife, and it's all just like this stupid, childish crap about how to get your partner under control rather than sit there like a bunch of adults and have an adult conversation with your partner about whatever issues it is you have in your marriage. And they call women children, yet they're the ones that seem like they're like not mature enough to have an adult conversation, like saying stuff like, oh, well, if you wait till she's having an orgasm and then tell her you're going to cheat on her, she'll be turned on by you cheating. It's like, what kind of childish, stupid crap is that? And these guys look up to him like he's and call him the alpha male. It's like, that is not masculine. That is childish. That is stupid. These guys are idiots. They're not mature enough to have an adult, like, grown-up relationship. And the other thing is always to blame women every single time a woman is, you know, if men have been abused or treated badly or anything like that by women, you know, they expect sympathy, and they expect to blame all women. You know, in the manosphere, red pill community, they'll just take the worst examples of worse things that women have done and try to pretend that this is normal women and try to attribute it to female nature and this is what all women do. Okay, and if you like dare like defend women, suddenly you're being insensitive to men, insensitive to their experiences. But as soon as there's like any kind of abuse against a woman, they'll turn it round and try to say that it is her fault.
like we talk about this in the manosphere all the time. You have a bunch of just like women. Women are very emotional, right? They can be emotionally unstable. You have a bunch, and then you add a bunch of them together. You're going to have drama, chaos, all this other type of stuff. So in order to keep order, it's a very practical solution to use a lot of force, to use intimidation, whatever. So again, I'm not excusing what Tate did at all, but that is the nature of the business. If you're a pimp, it's going to be more surprising if you don't use a little bit of violence to get your women in line than if you do it a very peaceful way. Because if you do it in a very peaceful way, they're probably not going to listen to you, because the types of girls that get into that type of stuff in the first place, they're probably going to be highly emotional and will only respond to those types of.
What part was incorrect? You were basically saying like a woman should just say no right then and there and leave. Not all girls can do that though.
Okay, but that's what they should do. That doesn't
That's
mean
what they should do, but not all girls are able to.
Whose fault is that?
Whose fault is that?
Yeah.
I'm guessing us women, right?
Whose fault is that? Maybe it's the dude who tried to get her massively drunk. Maybe it's the guy who invited her over for a one-on-one and then ambushed her with 7 other niggas. Maybe it's the dude who's been looking for a woman who's emotionally and mentally vulnerable and then manipulating her and coercing her and gaslighting her and beating her into submission. You know what I mean? Like, agency isn't always on the other person. You can't render someone so fucking dependent on you that you fuck them up. Or, like we say all the time, men and women are different. Women are built physically less strong. To think they can always assert their boundaries in every circumstance when you just literally had a racist on your podcast who you did not push back on for any of the shit that he did. I don't know. Somebody just treat him a little bit funny. You want to get loud and proud with these women, tell them it's their fault and this, that. But when you had a grapist on your fucking podcast, a self-admitted proud one, you had no smoke. Ain't you the one who says, oh, we should get normalized telling people when they say dumb shit?
This turning it around and trying to say that it's always the woman's fault kind of bugs me, because, like, it's done in a way to protect the abuser. Because it's one thing to say, like, yeah, everybody, men and women, you're accountable for your own safety. Yeah, I don't disagree with that, like, you know, you should be able to advise people, both men and women, you know, to take precautions to keep themselves safe. Or, you know, if you keep choosing toxic partners, you should look at yourself and ask yourself why you're attracted to these people or why you're attracting these people. You know, so I'm not against accountability, but these guys, they put the blame on women every time a woman's abused, in a sense to sort of defend the abuser. Like, if they're a fan of Andrew Tate, straight away they're like, oh, well, you know, the reason why, like, they were beating women is probably because a load of women working together, they're going to be emotional and they're going to be annoying and they're going to be such a pain. And men have beaten women for years, so obviously it's just normal. You know, they're hamster rationalising it in a way to sort of put the blame on the women because they think it then makes the abuser sound like they're less bad, okay? Or, like, in relationships, when they say stuff like, oh, well, why did she stay with him so long?
If a girl, and I'll explain, if a girl tells you, I was in an abusive relationship, she is radioactive. Because if she's lying, and she probably is, that means she might accuse you of doing something like that. If she's not lying, if she really was in an abusive relationship, then we know she has serious judgment impairment because she stayed with an abusive guy. It's the same thing as EPAR. How many girls say that they were EPAR, spelled backwards? I want to stay away from that word. There are so many girls who claim to have been EPAR'd, and the definition is so subjective. It's such a wide definition. You know what? Actually, I was EPAR'd 3 years ago, blah, 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 blah. It's absolutely ridiculous. So if a girl tells you, well, I was EPAR'd, she's radioactive, because if she's lying, she could accuse you of EPAR. If she's not, she's damaged beyond repair. Girls have, and it's always the same story with these bitches. Why did you leave the relationship? He was abusive. How long were you with him? 4 years. Okay, now there's a problem. And girls don't seem to be doing the math here.
It's like you were getting beat up for 4 years.
It's like, well, a lot of people, men or women, sometimes will stay in abusive relationships for a long time. Sometimes they'll stay forever. And psychologists, like, well, they very often, when they talk about this, they talk about something called the trauma bond, that sometimes people will stay in abusive relationships because they're trauma bonded. But also, what makes me angry is that they blame the woman for putting up with the abuse for such a long time, when they're part of the community that is likely to make this worse, because you sit here and criticise, well, some of them in this community will sit here and criticise a woman for divorcing an abusive husband and go on about how, oh, well, the woman breaks up the family when the woman divorces the husband. you know, or like some of the religious people in this community, you don't agree with divorce, and so we'll actually sit there and say a woman should stay like in an abusive relationship, but then we'll turn around and say like, well, why was the woman stupid enough to stay in an abusive relationship, when you're ones that are making the problem worse? Okay. And again, it's like the victim blaming the woman. Again, it's like the no empathy for the woman. You'll all go on about how men get treated so horrible by women, but when a woman is a victim of abuse, it's swept under the carpet. You'll put the blame on the woman, or even if you accept that she's been through like a horrible time, you'll just turn around and say like, oh well, why did she stay with him? Why did she do this? Why did she do that? Again, it's like no empathy for the woman. And it kind of annoys me. Like, well, I mean, men and women in the red pill annoy me with this hypocritical thing about, like, blaming the woman for their abuse. But then for men, it's, you know, they're not going to blame the man. They're going to blame every single woman on the planet. They annoy me with that hypocrisy. But it kind of bugs me when these women in the red pill go down this line of like picking on the women and blaming the women for everything and making fun of women and being so insensitive to women because they make a load of money out of it, because they get a lot of male attention out of it. And they kind of annoy me because I kind of think they could be in the same situation themselves. Like I said before, like, I mean, Pearl makes fun of like women for being like in their 30s and not married, when she could be in her 30s and not married, or 40s or 50s, because she doesn't know what's going to happen. Or like she'll join in the slagging off of single mothers and going on about how terrible single mothers are. She could be a single mother one day, okay? Because even if you think like, oh no, I'll be a brilliant wife, I'll be a brilliant mother, it's like a lot of people think that, but their marriages still go down the drain. It's like, again, I'm not trying to be negative, I'm not wishing this on her or anything, but I'm just saying, because she picks on women over this stuff, she doesn't know that she could end up being the demographic that she picks on. She could be a single mother one day, okay? But then particularly the insensitivity to women in abusive relationships like pisses me off with somebody like Pearl, because and other women in the red pill, right? Because they could end up in an abusive relationship, but specifically seen as the kind of men they defend and the kind of men that they think are good men is like, you defend Andrew Tate, you know, despite the fact that he is openly admitted to grooming teenage girls that he's found on the internet, grooming them and persuading them to do his sex camera work. You've seen video footage of him actually threatening to hit this woman with a bow and her going and locking herself in the bathroom. Okay, you've heard tape recordings of him talking about a phone call to this like woman who's accused him of rape, and he's saying like, oh, the more you didn't like it, the more I enjoyed it. It's like, you know he's done these bad things and you defend him, like, again, sweeping abuse under the table when it happens to women. You defend people like Fresh and Fit and Myron Gaines and all those guys who they hate women, they despise women, okay? You know, all these guys that just like openly talk about how much they hate women and how you should treat women like shit. You defend guys like this but then you sort of act like, oh, well, women are such idiots for like choosing abusive men, and they're such idiots for staying in these relationships. When like you're the one who's walking around like defending abusive men, saying abusive men are good people, and being like, well, I'd put up with cheating if I was in a relationship, and yeah, I'd choose one of these right-wing misogynists to marry me. It's like, it's almost like you're like walking around like telling guys like, oh yeah, I'll put up with you, whatever, however bad you want to treat me, I'll put up with it, and then you go and talk about how other women are idiots for like their choices or for staying in bad relationships. But anyway, that's all I've got to say about that for now. Thank you for listening.